choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names. That nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names. That nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise, to glorify, glorify the name of all names. That nothing can stand against. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Yes, I will. Woke up this morning, the whole world was yelling. I wish I was dreaming all that we've been through. My soul has been searching for some deeper meaning. I know there's a kindness that leads me to the truth. When everybody's looking for another fight, when trouble's on the rise, no end in sight. Oh, Savior, won't you come and make the wrong things right? Let me be the place you start. Give me a clean heart. What is forgiveness if it isn't given? We measure our mercy. Mercy is a blood. Give us a vision, your eyes of compassion. In all this division, may we be known by our headline breaks, we start to hate again, calling them names again. We give our peace away. I hope they see it, 'cause I wanna see it. I hope we believe it. I wanna see the love all around you, all around you. I wanna know that love is all around you. It's all around. Day by day, hope fades away, and we know that there is pain within. We cannot live. Learn to feel, learn to begin again. Open our eyes again to see our brother's pain. I hope they see it, 'cause I wanna see it. I hope we believe it. I wanna see the love all around you, all around. I wanna know that love is all around you. It's all around. See how it lights you up. It lights you up. See how it lights you up. It lights you up. See how it lights you up. It lights you up. I wanna see the love all around you, all around you. I wanna know that love is all around you. It's all around.
Would you pray with me? God, thank you for the gift of this day, for the opportunity to spend this morning together as a community, lifting one another up and trying to be that love that we're singing about. Help us to resist the urge to, as that song says, give our peace away with fear and with anger and hatred, and help us to be your love in the world in the way that we're called to be, and to move through the world representing your son Jesus to the people that we meet. Thank you for the gift of this day. Thank you for this community, and help us to lift each other up this morning and come together feel less alone and feel the love and encouragement that we need for the coming week. Help us to get the message that we need to hear out of your scripture and this service, and thank you for a community like this. We're grateful, and we lift our hearts to you, God, in gratitude. Amen. Welcome to The Well. My name is Matt Lefevers. I'm the worship and social media producer here. And if you're new with us, you're our guest, and we're so glad that you're here. If you'd like to let us know you're here, text WELCOME to the number on the screen, 480-530-7234, and you'll get more information about The Well. Before we get started, we usually like to highlight a ministry opportunity each month that we're trying to kind of take to the next level. And this month it's Road Crew. We did a Road Crew push a while back, like last year, and some really incredible people stepped up, and I could not be more grateful to be working alongside those folks every Sunday. But as we continue building things out around here and trying to make the service the best that it can be, it's clear we could use a few more people during setup. So Road Crew, if you don't know them, is the team that shows up first thing in the morning and makes all of this happen, unloading carts and setting up the service. It's a ministry that's really close to my own heart because I'm kind of a permanent Road Crew member, so they're some of the people in the church I get to spend the most time with. And if you're interested at all in learning more about that or helping out, you can email us at info@wellchurch.org. And then today is week 3 of our series, Love, Dating, and Marriage. So let's watch the bumper video for that right now. So we're in this Love, Dating, and Marriage series, and today we're talking about communication and teamwork. In some ways, every week in this series is about communication because almost everything in a relationship kind of rises and falls on communication. But today we're going to really drill down and look at how do we communicate with each other? How do we handle conflict? What are some tools we can use to do a better job at those things? So often, whether it's in this series, we're kind of talking about romantic relationships, but this applies to our relationships, our family, our friends, our coworkers. So often we don't communicate as well as we wish that we did. And sometimes things turn ugly and we kind of don't understand why, or tempers flare and people say things they don't mean. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling after a fight where the dust settles and you're kind of replaying it and you're thinking, why did I even say that? How did that come out so wrong? Or if you're anything like me, you sometimes don't even have the conversation. You just stew in it for a few days thinking this thing the other person said or did is so unfair. Maybe if I just get really quiet and distant and give like one-word answers to questions, they will magically understand why I'm angry and they'll apologize, which is obviously a very realistic expectation. So I want to start with that because before we even get into communication styles between two people, I think the first thing to name is that not all of us even really know what's going on with ourselves. How many fights or conflicts have we had in our lives that probably, if we're honest, boiled down to, I got 4 hours of sleep the night before, or I'm stressed about something totally else, work or whatever. It's such a critical skill to practice being aware of how we're doing. If you're tense, if you're on edge, if sometimes I have those days where I just feel like I have a short fuse and lots of small things are kind of setting me off. Slow down and ask, why? Is there something going on? And just looking inward and kind of being aware of that. One of the things I appreciate the most about my wife, Jackie, is all of the things about her, but also she's she's very aware of that kind of thing. She knows herself well, and so I'll pick up on the fact that something's off with her, and I'll be overthinking, like, oh no, she's mad at me. I can tell the vibes are off, but if I ask, hey, are you okay? She's good at being able to say, you know what, I'm pretty tired. That's all it is. Or, dinner's taking longer than I expected. I'm getting hangry. By the way, always know when you or somebody else is getting hangry. I didn't make like a sermon point slide for this, but it's that important. I could have made a sermon point slide for this. Not having discussions when one of you is hangry is relationship saving advice, but that kind of self-awareness isn't just for day-to-day stuff either. The more you can understand kind of what your own personality is like, how you tend to operate in relationships, the better equipped you'll be to navigate conversations with other people. What is the tone you're using when you're talking to the people you love, and is it the tone you're intending to use? Do you have specific triggers, things that, when they come up, you have an outsized reaction to? If you're having a normal discussion and all of a sudden you find yourself getting really emotional or defensive, it's usually worth digging down underneath that, because that doesn't usually exist in a vacuum. There's usually a thing underneath the thing that is coming up for us, whether it's a childhood memory or like a trigger from earlier in our lives, or some kind of need that we have and may not even be aware of, but it's not being met. And so the idea of understanding ourselves and then understanding our partner and how we each tend to operate definitely applies to communication styles too. In this series, we've been drawing a lot from the research of Julie and John Gottman. That's one of our main things we're leaning on in this series. And in one of their books, they outline 3 conflict styles that most people fall into based on their research. And I'd never heard of this before, but reading about these, I felt so many things click into place for me regarding past conflicts that I've had. So according to the Gottmans, the 3 communication styles are avoiding, which is you tend to not even want to have difficult discussions at all. Avoiding types will usually kind of want to agree to disagree, and they'll keep the peace. They'll just not bring up the things they know are going to cause conflict. And it is totally possible to be like a healthy avoiding type, where you just have kind of an upbeat live and let live approach to life, where it's fine that people don't agree with me. I don't need everyone to agree with me. That can be great. But of course, as Ryan said last week, every relationship is going to have conflicts. And saying we never fight isn't really the flex that you think that it is. So if you're in a relationship where you feel like we never fight, it might be that you're avoiding important topics that you should be talking about. That's the sort of the pitfall of this first type. The second conflict style is validating. Validating types tend to be very calm in conflict. They're not afraid of conflict. They'll have the debate, but they do it very calmly and rationally. They're open to persuasion. They're trying to make their case. They're open to being persuaded by their partner. They're working toward a compromise. And so validating folks tend to be very rational and collaborative. If the second type has a downside, it's that they are still really uncomfortable with like intense emotions. And so validating types might be willing to abandon their position on something if it will keep things from getting too explosive. They might kind of compromise on something when they shouldn't. And then the third type, according to the Gottman's research, is volatile, which if you're a volatile conflict type, you have no problem expressing emotions, and you may even perceive conflict as kind of fun, like it's almost a sparring match or like a witty back and forth. And conflict or argument for some volatile types might even be like a way to connect. It's not a negative for you. It's a way to kind of like get into it and connect with the other person. And so like big emotions, dramatic disagreements, humor even can be like part of their argument style. And the thing to watch out for if you're a volatile type is that it stays constructive and warm and doesn't slide into like meanness and browbeating. And so as I was learning about these three types, I was thinking back to different arguments that I've had. And, you know, if you and your partner have the same style, whichever of the three styles it is, if you're the same, you probably get along all right. But I'm sure you can already see how if a couple has one that's one type and one that's another type, it can lead to problems. To an avoiding type, the other two types might seem really intense and aggressive, and it feels like they're shouting at you and you just want to escape. But if you're like a volatile partner with an avoiding spouse, you're thinking like, I just want to engage with you and connect and hash this out. Why are you running away? Like, come back and let's talk about this. If you're the middle type, if you're a validating type, a volatile type is going to seem really emotional to you and like they're getting out of control and chaotic and you just want them to calm down and discuss it rationally. But if you're the volatile partner, the validating partner, they think they're being rational. To you, they don't come off as rational. They seem kind of cold. The volatile person might be thinking, why don't you care enough about this to argue back with me? Like, I'm trying to talk about our relationship and you're being mathematical. So it's worth taking some time to think through which of these types you might be and which of these types your partner might be. And the Gottmans are super clear in their research. None of these are doing it wrong. Like, it's not like there's a good type and if you're one of the other ones, you need to change or something. They just each have different pitfalls they need to watch out for. And if you and your partner's type is a mismatch, it's good to be aware of that. You might have to be really intentional about how you have these discussions. My wife and I are both validating types, which works out wonderfully for us because every disagreement we've ever had in 20 years together was handled calmly and logically and nobody ever raised their voice. Like, our fights look like a board meeting or something. It's like, point of procedure, have you considered this? Oh, interesting, okay. You know, like it works well for us, but I have friends who are more the avoiding type, and trying to nail them down to have a serious conversation can be like trying to befriend a stray cat where, okay, no sudden movements. Hey. You know, you have to be very, very, very deliberate in how you approach them. And then I know volatile people too, and to me, like from my perspective, it always seems like they're like louder than they need to be. Like, we're just having a conversation about Star Wars. Why are you shouting? But to them, like I can put myself in their shoes now, and I can see like to them, I'm probably suspiciously quiet. Like, what is this guy thinking? I can't ever tell what he's up to. So whichever type you are, there's no avoiding some amount of conflict in a relationship. You know, like we said last week, two people are never going to magically agree on every single thing. And if those issues are important ones, then not engaging with them isn't going to be healthy either. So we need to know how to engage with those topics. And the good news is, according to the Gottman's research, it doesn't really matter so much which of these styles you are. It matters more how you handle the communication once you're having it. And specifically, they refer to something called the magic ratio, which has come up a little bit already in this series, but the magic ratio is how many positive interactions you have during a conversation versus negative interactions. And according to the Gottmans, when you're in a fight, you should be aiming for a 5-to-1 positive to negative interactions ratio. Negative interactions, what they mean by that is things like rolling your eyes, scoffing, you know, doing a mocking laugh, like raising your voice, any sort of personal attack or criticism, things that make the fight more hostile. And then it sounds weird to say positive interactions during a fight, but the positive interactions you can have during a fight might be apologizing. You know, it might be like, yeah, I'm sorry I did that. It could be validating the other person's view, which is not the same thing as saying you agree. It's just saying, okay, like the way you're explaining it from your perspective, I can see why you'd feel that way. Listening attentively, acknowledging the things you love or admire about the other person. If you can keep the ratio 5 positive to every 1 negative interaction, then no matter which of these conflict styles you are, it is possible to have a productive fight about something and work towards a solution and emerge from it, maybe more connected rather than less connected. If the ratio gets off and it's mostly negative, both parties are going to leave the conversation feeling angry and probably unheard and unappreciated. They're going to walk away feeling worse than before they went in, and it's not going to be conducive to solving whatever the issue actually is. The 5-to-1 ratio, by the way, they're very clear. This is for while you're having a conflict discussion. In your regular everyday life, just hanging out together, the ratio is actually supposed to be 20-to-1. So, it's acknowledging that in a fight, it's going to skew a little more negative because you need to have conflict. But when you're just going about your life, it should actually be 20 positive to every 1 negative. And one of the best ways to keep that ratio up in your day-to-day life is paying attention to your partner's bids for connection, which is a term that refers to any time during the day that we try to connect with our partners in some small way, and a lot of them are really small. Like, these are the things you barely notice, but, showing someone a meme that you thought was funny, or, you're walking through the kitchen and kind of touch the other person, or you hear a song that you think they would like and you show it to, like, just little things, like, look at this cool thing I found, that, hey, how are you doing? And by themselves, most of these things don't seem important, and individually they probably aren't, but if we consistently turn toward our partner's bids for connection, over time it makes the relationship a lot stronger. And if we consistently turn away from them, like they're trying to show us something, okay, like I'm busy. Or the worst case scenario is you get snappy, like I'm doing something, like leave me alone. That's really damaging to the relationship long term. So the Gottman's right. A lot of things seem, in the moment, so much more urgent than chatting with your partner about the bird they just spotted out the window or pausing to ask them why they look stressed. But in the long term, they aren't. Decades of data back this up. These fleeting opportunities for connection that are sprinkled throughout every day have an enormous power to affect the future unfolding of our relationship. Another way to put it that I found in an online article was, simply put, successful couples are attentive. They listen, and they put their phones down when the other person wants to chat. They put their phones down when the other person wants to chat is the most modern sentence, isn't it? Like, that sentence would have made no sense to me 15 or 20 years ago, but it's such a real thing now. Like, I know that feeling. I've been on the receiving end of failed bids for connection. It doesn't feel good, but part of good communication is also being honest about your own failures. And so, as I was writing this, I was thinking a lot about this bids for connection thing, and I was forced to be brutally honest. I think I'm actually terrific at this with my wife and with my friends. I'm not great about it with my son. And the morning I was writing this, my usual routine is I get up first thing in the morning and I start doing chores and making coffee and stuff so that the rest of my family can stay in bed and have a little more leisurely start to their day, so I'm already in the kitchen doing things. And I don't mind it, that's a routine that works for us, but sometimes I'm in the middle of that. I'm doing the dishes, I've got this whole list of chores I'm running through in my head, I've got headphones on, I'm up to my elbows in like soapy water, and my son will appear out of nowhere trying to talk to me about a YouTube video or something, and I've gotten short with him before. I'm like, what is it? What are you trying to show me? And it's sometimes said that you give the sermons that you need to hear. And so this is one of those bits where I'm passing along advice, not because like I am incredible at this, here you go, you're welcome. Like, this is something I'm also trying to be aware of, is that these little moments of connection, these bids are it's essentially putting a tiny bit of money into the bank every time it comes up. And then when you need to have a difficult conversation with your partner or whoever, there's something in that trust bank to like withdraw on. It doesn't have to put you into the red. You've been topping things up over time. And so, speaking of hard conversations, another word of warning from the Gottmans is that how you start a conversation like that matters a lot. If there's a disagreement brewing and you know there's something on your mind you need to hash out with your partner, you have to ease into it respectfully. Ryan talked about this last week, the harsh startup, and how the first 3 minutes of a conversation can predict how the whole rest of the conversation is going to go. We don't want to come in guns blazing, throwing criticisms around, backing our partner into a corner. What's equally important, though, is how we handle these disagreements when we're the other person. When someone in our lives comes to us with a problem that they want to discuss, it's tempting to jump straight into defending ourselves and arguing with them or minimizing. It's not, no, I didn't do that. I don't. And before you say anything, the Gottmans say it's really important to let the person bringing up the issue fully explain where they're coming from. Like, make sure you completely understand what they're trying to say. You can literally ask clarifying questions like, what do you mean by that? Tell me more. Like, you can summarize back to them. So what I hear you saying is, I did this and it upset you. Like, really understand what the thing is before you respond to it. For one thing, because once they know you've been listening and you've heard the complaint and they feel listened to, it's going to go better having that discussion. It's something that the Bible actually comes back to again and again and again, is exactly this sort of thing. The letter of James puts it like this: "You must understand this, my beloved brothers and sisters. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, for human anger does not produce God's justice," which is a very chill, like contemplative way to put this idea. The book of Proverbs puts it more bluntly. They say, "If one gives answer before hearing, it is folly and shame." Go off, book of Proverbs. Good communication means really listening to where your partner is coming from and not jumping in to defend yourself right away. Getting defensive like that is so dangerous that the Gottmans refer to it as one of the 4 horsemen. We talked about these last week during the red flag sermon, and it's really good info. Like, if you missed that sermon, I would recommend catching it on our website. But the 4 horsemen of communication are ways of speaking to our partner that if one or both of the people in the couple is doing it, it predicts the end of a relationship. And they're criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling, which sometimes show up in a big way and it's really obvious. Sometimes they show up in small ways and it's subtle, but it may even be visible to people outside your relationship. So as we were heading into this relationship series, there was this couple I was thinking about that I used to know, where one of them would constantly nitpick the small details of stories that the other one was telling. It was I still remember it because I thought it was such a strange thing to do, but our one friend would be telling us all a story, and they'd be like, yeah, so last Monday we went to Whole Foods, and their partner would cut in with like, it was Tuesday. And our friend would kind of, Tuesday, I guess, sorry. So we went to Whole Foods, and they had this pita bread there, and their partner would be like, it was naan bread. And I don't know what that was. I really don't understand. There's these like tiny microaggressions, but it was correcting details that like the rest of us hearing the story don't care about. It's not relevant to the story. There was no need to like set the record straight. But there was this contempt under the surface where it became really uncomfortable to listen to them interact. And I remember thinking, and this was years ago, 10, 15 years ago, I remember thinking this couple's in trouble. Like if this is how they interact in front of us, how do they interact at home? So what do we do if we find ourselves slipping into any of these behaviors? How do we get back on track? This is where the positive interactions that I mentioned before can be helpful. They're sometimes called repair attempts. That's another Gottman term. When a fight has turned negative and you can try to walk back some of the negativity and tilt that ratio back into the positive, it could be a repair attempt could be something like, you know, what I just said was really harsh. I actually didn't mean that. I'm sorry. Or if you say something that isn't quite what you meant to say and it comes off cruel, that didn't come out right. Can I try again? You know, even non-verbally holding the other person's hand or something, anything to pull things back toward love and appreciation and away from criticism and contempt. The Gottmans write, happy relationships aren't relationships where there is no fighting. They're relationships where repairs are made after regrettable incidents happen. Happy couples are not so very different from unhappy couples. They're simply able to make repairs to their relationship easier and faster so that they can get back to the joy of being together. The way the book of Proverbs puts it is, rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. I know this is a metaphor, and like most metaphors, it's a little hyperbolic, but there have been things people have said to me that if I had a choice between hearing that again or, you know, getting cut with a sword, like I'd have to think about it. It's one of the truths the Bible returns to over and over in Proverbs all over the place, in the letter of James, in the words of Jesus, is that words can do a lot of damage. Words can and do hurt other people in ways that can be hard to come back from. But like this proverb says, words can heal too if we're willing to engage in those repair attempts. There's a saying that I love. I searched really hard to try to find out who coined this or if it's from somewhere. I wasn't able to find it, but you may have heard it. It's, remember that it's you and your partner versus the problem, not you versus your partner. Life can be a lot. Life can be overwhelming and stressful and hard to navigate. But if you're married or you're in a relationship, it's so important to remember that you're a team. My wife Jackie and I actually have this thing we do. I don't remember how it started, but when we're having a really difficult or exhausting day, anytime things feel overwhelming, we'll pass each other in the hallway or whatever, and we'll take a moment to say, "Hey, teammate." Or when our kiddo was a little baby and he'd wake us up in the middle of the night for the fourth time, you know, whichever of us went and checked on him, when they got to bed, the other one would say, "I love you, teammate." Like, we just started calling each other teammate sometimes. And it's just a thing we do. We didn't consciously implement it, but it makes me think of this expression because every time we say, "Hey, teammate," it's a little reminder that it's me and her versus the problem. We're teammates having a difficult day together. It's not I'm having a difficult day and she's like part of the difficult day that I'm having. We're on the same team. The way that you frame your challenges makes such a big difference to how they end up feeling to you. That's why this same team thing is so effective for me. Because the story that you're telling yourself affects how you respond to what's going on. And the more that you can see your partner as a protagonist in your story and not as one of the antagonists of your story, the healthier your relationship is going to be. On that note, I want to show a video from a couple here in our congregation, Alicia and Michelle, where they do a fantastic job of talking about this thing. It's about 4 minutes long, so let's watch.
It's so easy to fall into like who's right, but that the field of answers and perspectives and approaches that are within the realm of workable is pretty big. Like a lot of issues that sometimes people disagree in are actually debatable and they get in trouble because they don't realize that like it's not a right or wrong issue. So yeah, that can be just voicing and understanding. And I think we just talk about things, even when they're really hard, even if, you know, there's been some things that it's been multiple days that we've had to come back to and try to talk about and try to work through, but just not accepting, not just being like, well, I guess we're not going to work through it, but just coming back to it, because you can't just like resolve everything in one conversation. But you have to come around, reflect, come back to it, and be able to share openly, because we have been through a lot of things even in a short period of time, and sorting through emotions that can get complicated sometimes has not always been easy, but you just keep at it, and you have to have trust and openness.
I think one thing too that we both have been working on is always coming from a place of expressing our own experience and not making assumptions about the other's intentions. Because it's so interesting. We love to judge ourselves by our intentions, not the outcomes, but of course judge others by the outcomes. And just coming from that place of maybe you didn't mean to be hurtful. Maybe you weren't actually trying to ruin my afternoon by saying that, maybe it's not even related and I'm having these feelings, so I should share what I'm feeling.
Yeah, Brene Brown has a phrase she uses, the story I'm telling myself is, and then like share, and then it's nice because you detach yourself from the story in your head that you're telling yourself about something, and you're able to like actually check with the other person what they actually meant.
And it also feels not as accusatory, because sometimes we might think about what someone else is intending. And if it is hurtful, it can feel big and scary and not good. And so I actually love that the story I'm telling myself is this is what's going on. And it's like, oh no, that's actually not what's happening. It gives you a chance, invites you into a conversation where you're not feeling like you have to defend yourself, but that you can still explain how you're feeling and how you see it. One thing though that's good about how direct we are is like, we'll call it out of, I feel like, I'm being miscast and misunderstood and not being given the space. I don't want to be put in a place where I have to be defensive. I want to be approached in a way that you're seeking to understand me, not cause me to defend myself. And we've had those moments where it can start that way. But even just by recognizing that's the feeling, it's like visceral. When someone comes at you within a topic in a way that triggers that defensiveness. Like, if you stay in that vein, that's how you end up just getting into a fight. And we'll call it out in the beginning. It's like, whoa, this is not going to be productive, and redirect. And we're really good at apologizing for if we said anything to get to that point, and then redirecting into a more open and understanding conversation.
Yeah, just trying to not be defensive. And if you can't not be defensive, at least be like, I know I'm being defensive right now.
Yeah.
Maybe I need a minute.
Yeah.
That phrase that Alicia and Michelle reference here, the story I'm making up or the story that I'm telling myself, that's one that my wife and I actually also use all the time. I had a bigger section here where I was going to explain it, and then I got their video and I was like, they explained it. Okay. But it's the story I'm making up or the story I'm telling myself, like Alicia and Michelle said, it does such a good job of removing an accusatory tone from things. It's just owning it right out the gate. This is a narrative that I'm making up about what's going on with us. You can correct it if it's off base. And this idea of the stories we make up about what other people are thinking reminds me of this phenomenon in psychology that's called fundamental attribution error, or sometimes it's referred to as actor-observer asymmetry. It's a cognitive bias. It's one of those baked-in cognitive biases that humans just have, and we have to work really hard to be aware of. And what it essentially says is we tend to attribute our own behavior to situations and stuff that's going on around us, but other people's behavior to their character or personality. It's kind of like what Michelle was saying, where it's you judge yourself based on your intentions and other people based on the outcome of their actions. But what the fundamental attribution error is saying is when we're late for work, our tendency is to say, oh my gosh, traffic was bad, my stupid alarm didn't go off, I didn't realize the gas tank was empty. Like, other things happened and that's why I'm late. But when someone else is late for work, we're way more likely to think, oh, so-and-so's late again. I guess they don't value punctuality. You know, it's their fault. It's who they are as a person. And my bachelor's degree is in psychology, which I always joke that getting exactly a bachelor's degree and then stopping in psychology is like just enough psychology knowledge to be dangerous, not enough to go into any career. But I remember learning about this in school, 20 years ago or something, and it really resonated with me. And I think about it a lot. I really think about it a lot when I'm driving, because if I accidentally cut someone off, or I make a mistake when I'm driving, I go when I shouldn't have gone or something, I'm like, oh man, I just cut in front of that guy. I'm so sorry. I've always wished there's one way to communicate in a car, which is a horn. I've always wished there was like a second horn that was like the apology horn for when that's not aggressive, that doesn't make them think you're mad. You could just be like, I'm sorry, that was my bad. Because I want there to be a way to let the other cars know that I'm not a bad person who drives like a jerk. I just made an honest mistake. Like, I'm sorry. But when other cars cut me off, I definitely assume they're bad people who drive like a jerk. Like, I honestly assume there may be bad people in other areas of their life. Like, someone cuts me off and I'm like, I'll bet that guy forgets his anniversary and they're mean to their pet. This is the fundamental attribution error at work. This is the sort of thing that's probably not great to do with strangers. Like, we should maybe not be doing that, but it's very dangerous to do with our partner. And it's easy to fall into, like, if you bring it inside your own home, if it's, if it was my responsibility to get the dishes done and the laundry and that stuff hasn't happened, it's so easy for me to let myself off the hook. I'm busy, there's a lot going on, I had to run all those errands earlier, that's why I'm behind. It's not my fault. But if your partner does the same thing and you find yourself thinking, there they go again with their bad time management, I guess they're an unreliable person, like, that's a dangerous road to start down. And so with the driving thing, a game I sometimes play now is when a car cuts me off on the road, I'll think, what is the best reason they could have for doing that? What's the reason that if I learned what it was, somehow I would totally forgive that? Like, maybe that car, the driver's wife is in labor and all they can think about is getting to the hospital in the next 5 minutes. Like, maybe the car that's speeding and I'm judging them for speeding, they're late for a job interview, that if they got this job, they could turn their whole life around. Maybe they just got a call from their child's school. Like, there are explanations that if that's what's going on, I would be like, okay. Like, and Brene Brown once phrased the question like this: what is the most generous assumption you can make about this person's intentions or what this person said? When in doubt, we should be leaning in the direction of grace, not judgment. If we're making up a story anyway, and we are, why shouldn't we make up a generous one? When I was learning about, cognitive bias and actor-observer asymmetry and fundamental attribution error, I was sitting in like a 300-person lecture hall in college taking Psychology 101 or wherever we learn these things. I remember sitting there and thinking of a C.S. Lewis quote, because I'm an insane person. And after class, I ran home and I tried to find it because something in me was shouting, like, these ideas are connected. Hang on, what did that remind me of? And C.S. Lewis talks about that command in the Bible that we're to love our neighbor as ourselves. And he's kind of musing on, like, what does that actually mean? And so he writes, you are told to love your neighbor as yourself. Well, how do you love yourself? When I look into my own mind, I find that I do not love myself by having affectionate feelings or because I'm particularly good, but just because I'm myself, quite apart from my character. I might detest something which I've done, but nevertheless, I don't cease to love myself. Love is not affectionate feeling, but a steady wish for the loved person's ultimate good as far as it can be obtained. I think what Lewis is getting at here is most of us don't walk around feeling super lovey about ourselves. I mean, I hope we don't walk around feeling terrible about ourselves, but most of us aren't just like, I'm incredible. But what we do usually feel about ourselves is this sense that there's more to us than our worst actions. We might have an off day or hurt somebody by mistake, but that's not who we fundamentally are. And Lewis is saying, what if when Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself, what he's saying is give other people that same level of grace that you give yourself? Or to put it back in psychology terms, try to put other people on the same side of the attribution error that we put ourselves on. When we aren't sure why someone else is behaving the way they are, we can err on the side of kindness and give them the same grace that we give ourselves. The most egregious example I could think of not doing this is, I don't know if any of you watch a lot of romantic comedies, but there's this formula they tend to follow where Act 1, the characters have a meet cute, and then Act 2 is them falling in love. And then because of the way movies are structured, right around the start of Act 3, there needs to be a horrible misunderstanding that breaks them up so that you can then have the big apology in the rain or somebody runs to catch an airplane. And it's so common that the website TV Tropes has a whole page for it, and they named it the third act misunderstanding. And on the top of that page on TV Tropes, they have this line graph of a relationship getting better and better and better, and then it says contrived miscommunication, followed by man humiliates self in charming and expensive manner. But the part that always gets me is that contrived miscommunication. Like, I've walked out of rom-coms so upset before because I love rom-coms, but I also really value communication. And in sitcoms or movies or whatever, it makes me so angry when it's always this huge blowout fight, or they break up and move to other sides of the country over some minor issue that if they talked to each other about it directly could have been solved in 3 sentences. What I've never seen in a movie is character 1 say, hey, I was at the cafe yesterday, you didn't see me, but I walked in, and I saw you hug some lady, and I jumped to the worst possible conclusion, which is that you're cheating on me. And then person 2 is like, oh no, that was my sister, that's who you saw me. 2 sentences, done. But like, they don't just ask that. They storm off to Europe, and then the other person has to fly there and apologize in front of a cathedral or something. But like, plain, straightforward communicate. I understand that it makes a better movie like this, but plain, straightforward communication about what's on our minds doesn't make a good screenplay, but it's such a better way to live in real life. And so the final piece of advice I want to give today is this 3-word idea that totally changed my life when I read it. This is also a Brené Brownism, and she calls it clear is kind. And it's just clear is kind, unclear is unkind. That's such a short sentence, it doesn't feel like a transformative 6 words to read, but it's revolutionized things for me in relationships, at work, with friends. Some of us avoid directly saying hard things or having difficult conversations or asking plainly and directly for what we want because it can feel like it's more polite to kind of ask around the edges of what you want or insinuate or drop hints. I know that I'm prone to this. Like, I never want to upset anyone or for anyone to be unhappy at me, so if there's something someone's doing that bothers me, I'm likely to just kind of stuff it down and not say anything about it. If someone invites me out for an event and I don't want to do it, it feels rude and bad to say, like, sorry, I'm not interested. And so I'll drop a smoke bomb of excuses. Maybe, I don't know, let me check, and just run before, they press me on it. If there's something that I need from someone, it's hard to just walk right up to them and ask. It feels better to just vaguely imply what my own needs are or expect other people to intuit them. But what clear is kind has taught me is I think I'm being gentle and easygoing when I act like this, but I'm really making things harder and more confusing for everybody. Because it would be easier for the person who's making plans if I just said, hey, thanks so much for the invite, I actually can't right now. And then they can find someone else to go with. Like, that's better. Or if I need something from someone, it's better if I just go straight to them and I say, hey, I need this. And then they can do it or not do it. I'm not the boss of them, but at least there's not some secret standard they're being held to that nobody told them about. The Gottmans write about this like this. One of the major reasons conflicts escalate into the red zone is that people don't ask for what they need. Instead, they assume their partner already knows their needs and is, for whatever reason, refusing to fulfill them. There's a quote from Jesus that I actually think is getting at much the same thing. I'm used to hearing it in the King James Version, so I grabbed that, but it's, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Jesus is talking here about swearing elaborate oaths and making these dramatic promises, and he's saying, don't do any of that. Just say what you're going to do and then follow through on it. Like, clear is kind. The problem with hinting at things and talking around them is that we do have needs. All of us have needs. And when those needs don't get met because we didn't communicate them, then we're resentful. Not telling people what our expectations are, but then holding them accountable for our secret expectations is unkind. Maybe this isn't advice that you need. Like if we were talking about conflict styles earlier and you were like, I'm a volatile type, you probably don't have this issue, but I know for me it's an ongoing practice. Be direct with people. Clear is kind. So as we close here, on week 1 of this series, Ryan shared from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, and we kind of laughed about how it's the most common wedding verse ever. When Jackie and I got married, we actually went with a different one, also from Paul, but it's not the love is patient, love is kind. We shared Romans 12 at our wedding, which says, let love be genuine. Hate what is evil, hold fast to what is good. Love one another with mutual affection, outdo one another in showing honor. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be arrogant, but give yourself to humble tasks. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. If it is possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. When we picked out this verse for our wedding, we didn't know any of this Gottman Institute stuff. We'd never heard of Brene Brown. Like, all this terrific relationship advice was way in the future for us. But I think this verse from Paul covers so much of what we've talked about today. When Paul says, hold fast to what is good, I think of the 5-to-1 ratio and thinking of the good things about our partner, holding fast to those even when we're in the middle of a conflict. When he writes, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep, I'm reminded to let other people feel their emotions, and that I can come alongside them and see from their perspective rather than try to change them. When Paul writes, do not claim to be wiser than you are, I think, yes, we need the humility to understand that we don't know everything, and we shouldn't get so entrenched in our positions that we can't listen to our partner's viewpoint. And when I read, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably, I think of boundaries. You can keep your side of the street clean, as the expression goes, and you can try to meet other people with grace and compassion, but if they're not going to do the same, that's outside of our control, and we might need a boundary, or if it's our partner, some counseling. Rob Bell writes that people in the scriptures essentially are loved into their futures. And what he means by that is God meets us where we are, loves us for who we are, but also believes that we can grow to become better. God trusts that we're capable of being even more loving than we currently are. God loves us into our futures by believing we're someone who's capable of rising to that expectation. If we give our partner grace, or our family member or colleague or friend or child, if we believe they're doing their best, they might surprise us. If we can flip that attribution bias and believe that the person we're clashing with might have good reasons for acting how they're acting, things will go better. We can hold fast to what is good in our relationships and remember that it's us and our partner versus the problem. We're a team. Will you pray with me? God, thank you for this series and for the wisdom of teachers like Julie and John Gottman, like Brene Brown, for teachers like the author of the book of Proverbs, for teachers like the author of the letter of James, wisdom that goes back thousands of years. And most of all, thank you for teachers like your son, Jesus, who both taught how to live well in this world and also modeled an example of how to live well in this world, to turn the other cheek and to greet people with curiosity and with kindness and not make up our minds about them without their input, but, be curious about their story, hear them out, wonder where they're coming from, love them. Thank you for the example that your son was for how to do that. And help us to try and follow in those footsteps, to live with openness and curiosity and warmth and love, and break out of some of these human biases that we have that keep us from living out that example. We ask these things in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen. So we have so many announcements today. I say this anytime there's a huge list of these things. I'm legitimately stoked about it. It's so exciting to me to have all of this stuff going on in the church, but I will try and go through them quickly. So if you're new with us today, again, you're our guest, and if you'd like to learn more about us, text the word welcome to 480-530-7234. You'll get more information about the well. You can always see our announcements and discover more about us on our website, wellchurch.org. Our ministry of LGBTQ folks meets every Tuesday evening. If you identify as part of that group, this is an amazing ministry to get involved with, so there's more info about that on our website. The next girls' night out is tomorrow, I believe, at 6 p.m., and there's a whole Facebook group for that you can get to from our website to get more info about that. It's also in the weekly email. Pray It Forward is this Wednesday. This is an online meeting for people who are feeling anxiety around politics in our country and what the future holds, and to gather and pray and find community together. So the next meeting is this Wednesday on Zoom, and that Zoom link is in our weekly email. The Parents Potluck Brunch is also coming up this week, hosted by Alicia and Michelle from the video earlier, and it's on Saturday, April 27th at 10:30. The info about that is also in our weekly email. The next Newcomers Lunch is on Sunday, May 5th at 1 p.m. If you're newer to the well, this is a chance to meet some folks and find out more about this community. So if you want to come to that, you can stop by the welcome table out there in the lobby to RSVP. We have a new announcement today. Love You Brunches is on May 12th. This is our annual Mother's Day potluck, and it'll be before service at 9 a.m. that day. So we'll have a sign-up link for that starting next week. The next Belong in membership class is on May 19th. This is an informational class to find out more about the well, and you can come to it, learn more about us, and then at the end you'll have an opportunity to become a member if you want. So the Zoom link for that is in our weekly email as well. I keep referencing the weekly email. If you're not getting that, email us at info@wellchurch, because it's a lot of these links and stuff are in there. And then next week, we're continuing this series, Love, Dating, and Marriage, talking about making it through difficult times as a couple, so be sure not to miss that. And finally, thank you for those who give to the well. We couldn't do this without you. If you're new, the offering is not a guilt trip for you. It's for people who say, this is my home church and I want to support it. And finally, let's stand as you're able for the closing prayer. God, as we leave this place, help us to feel more connected to you. Help us to hear your voice throughout the week, to be open to the urging of your Spirit, to try and move through the world in such a way that people feel that Spirit, and to be the embodiment of love and community and connection for the people in our lives who need that. Be with those of us who are hurting. Be with those of us who are having health struggles or relationship struggles or things that we're afraid of. Wrap those people in your arms and give them comfort. and help us to feel you throughout this week and to hear your voice throughout this week and be Jesus to the people that we encounter. We're grateful for this community and for this morning. Thank you, God. Amen. Go in peace.